Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namami buddhaṃ gunasāgarantang santā sadā hontu sukhiya vera kāyo jigunjo sakaro dugandho gaccanti sabbe maranaṃ ahañca. Have any question about our practice? If you have any question, you can ask.
And I met the energy going down to the earth, so that maybe this helps. Because I practice also Qigong, and from there I practice the energy, but it takes time. And I would just ask what you think about this practice too. Because if I feel when I focus here with the breathing, the energy goes only here to this area. And if I focus on my body more down, the energy goes to the earth.
That energy in when we see the Buddha's main doctrines, energy actually depends on not only even our physical body, but it depends on our mind. It consists with our mindfulness. If we can focus our mind in this present moment with mindfulness, it helps us to develop our real energy. Not just physical energy, but even the mental energy. When we are mentally very strong, purifying our mind, that influences our physical body too. That is why when we practice samatha, we can see passaddhi, piti. It means our mind is happy. That happiness influences our physical body too. The whole body, such as there is an example in Buddhism, when some person is in very hot weather, if he come to a well with water, very pure water, his entire body with water, he can overcome that hot situation. Like that. When we concentrate our mind in the present moment with positive thoughts, that positive mental situation completely influences our entire body too. And here especially we keep our mind in this area only as a primary technique. When we go to the deeper level with concentration, we don't need to keep our attention furthermore. Gradually we overcome our physical body too. We go to our deep understanding of our mental formation. Then we don't need to depend on our physical body. Whenever we depend on the feelings of our physical body, be sure we are not away from suffering. Whenever our mind depends on the physical body, it means we consist with physical suffering. Aging, sickness, death, all things are with us whenever our mind depends on the physical body. First we release our mind from the material world and persons. Next, we release from our even physical body too. Finally, we release from our mental formations too. Ultimately, it completely depends on our wisdom. Yes?
In the book, there was the word not beautiful for the body. I understand that it's important to let go of the body too. But why why should we call the body not beautiful? For me, organs and all what the body has is beautiful. For me, it's not useful to say that the body is not beautiful.
Actually, firstly, we can say our physical body beautiful or not. Next, we can say, changing our perception, my body is very beautiful. But when we go to the deeper level, no matter whether it's beautiful or ugly, we completely depends on our mental formations, which consist with mindfulness and wisdom. Beauty is not in the body. Beauty is in the mind. There are no beautiful things in this world. The world is neutral. Beauty or ugly depends on our perception. When I see you, you are so beautiful. When some person who hate like you people, they think that you are ugly. Ugly or beauty depends on our perception, depends on our mental formations. But when we go to the deeper level in mindfulness and wisdom, we don't find any beauty or ugly in the outside world, since we know very well the world is empty. When we recognize something through our senses in the outside material world, the external world, at the present moment, at the first experience, we can contact the material world. But when we recognize it, everything has gone, has finished, ceased. We recognize everything through our mind consciousness. When we recognize something through mind consciousness, the world is empty. Beauty or ugly or not there. It is just a concept. Yes?
Can you explain what you mean by mental formations?
There are 52 mental formations. Positive mental formations, negative mental formations, neutral mental formations, universal mental formations. There are 52 mental formations, such as desire or attachment is a mental formations, sensation, perception, anger, energy, confidence, mindfulness, loving kindness, concentration, wisdom. These are the mental formations. Mental formations depends on our right view, right understanding or wrong understanding. When we are with the wrong understanding, michhaditti, the negative or unwholesome mental formations are together. Wrong understanding, michhaditti, leads to negative mental formations, unwholesome mental formations, evil mental formations. And sammaditthi, correct vision, leads to positive mental formations, such as mindfulness, loving kindness, sympathetic joy, concentration, energy, generosity, loving kindness. Finally, the highest mental formation is that which is panya or wisdom. Wisdom is the highest mental formations. When we are in right view, right vision, by practicing the Noble Eightfold Path, that is the way we can develop the highest mental formations that cause us to achieve the spiritual happiness, enlightenment. Whenever we practice the Noble Eightfold Path, sammaditthi, right understanding, samma sankappa, right intention, samma vacha, right speech, samma kammanta, right action, samma ajīva, right livelihood, samma vāyāma, right energy, right effort, samma sati, right mindfulness, and samma samadhi, right concentration. When we practice these 8 facts which belong to the Noble Eightfold Path, all the positive and wholesome mental formations are in the highest level. They help us to overcome suffering. They help us to get rid of the external world. Those mental formations help us to overcome our mental illnesses or negative thoughts. That positive mental formations directly help us to overcome the samsaric circle completely. First we explain the vision or right understanding, then we practice with the right understanding what are the positive mental formations that we can practice through our practice. Any other question? Yes, please.
At what point should one stop keeping the attention on between the nose and the mouth? Is that even a point, or is that just when you get taken over, or is that a conscious decision to give in to awareness or so?
Actually, the place is different from person to person. Some persons is familiar with here. Some persons familiar with the end of the nose. Sometimes some persons are familiar with the middle of the nose. It is different from person to person. On the other side, firstly, we focus on our mind in this, physical place. The reason is that our mind is difficult to control. It goes here and there. As a primary technique, we use this thing. But it is just a primary technique. We don't need to practice this furthermore, lonely, until we attain our spiritual development. As a primary technique, we practice this method. But sometimes some persons are not relaxed with this practice. If not, they can avoid it. If a person is clever to directly point their mind in a particular place or particular object, they don't need to follow this instruction. They can directly come to their concentration object, such as loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, equanimity, breathing meditation. But especially, Buddhism directly explains that the importance of using this method for breathing meditation.
Yes, it works very well for me, but sometimes during meditation I was wondering, should I stop now, or is that not the point yet, or when should I?
Yes, actually, when our mind gradually gains concentration, automatically we overcome it, we release it. We feel it. Now I don't need to furthermore stay in here. When mind gradually comes to the stillness, ekagata, then we gradually overcome our even physical body to material world too. Then we come to the very stillness, ekagata. Okay, dear friends in the Dhamma, now we are going to discuss our main topic, the second part of Sammaditthi, right understanding about wisdom. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Viññā uppatataṃ sentā aviññā nipatataṃ varā. Sangho pavajamānānam Buddho pavadetang varoti. Venerable sirs, nuns, friends in the Dhamma, in this session we are going to discuss one of the main topics in Buddhism, Sammaditthi or right understanding. According to the Mahacatharisaka Sutta, the discourse of Mahacatharisaka, the Buddha explains Sammaditthi or right understanding as two levels. One level is that understanding the karmic law. Whatever we do with intention, we will have the same results. When mind is impure, the results are suffering. When mind is pure, the results are fruitful or happy. That is the very first step of right understanding. That is karmic law. Having this understanding, we develop positive thoughts in the mundane level, practicing three meritorious deeds: generosity, virtue, and meditation. Among these three meritorious deeds in the mundane level, the highest meritorious act is that loving kindness meditation. When we keep our attention in the loving kindness, we are able to reduce a lot of negative thoughts, unwholesome mental states, mental formations from our mind. At the same time, we are able to develop a lot of positive thoughts in our mind as a result of practicing and concentrating our mind in the metta bhavana. And also we are able to make a Brahma world in this human life. And also we are able to develop our mind to the Brahma level. That is the purpose and result of practicing metta bhavana, which is the highest meritorious act in the mundane level with the understanding of the right understanding of the first level. Now we are going to explain the second level of Sammaditthi. Atti bhikkhave Sammaditthi ariya anasava lokuttara magganga. There is a right view, right vision, which is noble, which directly helps us to overcome suffering completely. What is that? Understanding the Four Noble Truths. The Noble Truth of suffering, the Noble Truth of the origin of suffering, the Noble Truth of the cessation of suffering, the Noble Truth of the path that leads to getting rid of suffering. Dukkha Satya, Samudaya Satya, Nirodha Satya, and Magga Satya. Dukkha Satya, the Noble Truth of suffering, is explained in four areas. Here, very special thing, don't worry about suffering here. Even though it says as suffering, it is not the physical or mental suffering. Don't worry. It has a very deep meaning. The word of dukkha in Pali language cannot be translated to any language. There is no any other single word in any particular language. It is a very meaningful and complex word in Buddhism. In short, I can say something. How Buddhism explains the nature of suffering. It is a very deep meaning, but carefully listening to it. Dhamma explains what is dukkhaism. Kāyikan dukkhaṃ cetasika dukkhaṃ tapetva avasesaṃ dukkha satyam na dukkhaṃ. If there are anything besides physical suffering and mental suffering, that is the noble truth of suffering. That is not suffering. If there are anything besides physical suffering and mental suffering, That is the noble truth of suffering. That is not suffering. How do we translate the word of dukkha in Pali language to another language? This is the unique in Buddhism. Again, Dhamma explains, Kāyikan dukkhan, cetasika dukkhan, dukkhancha, dukkha satyancha. Physical suffering and mental suffering are the suffering and the noble truth of suffering. Physical suffering and mental suffering are the suffering and the noble truth of suffering as well. We have to listen to this same sentence again and again for many times to understand it. But don't worry, little by little we explain it. The very first meaning is, if there are anything besides physical suffering and mental suffering, that is the noble truth of suffering, that is not suffering. There is a difference between the noble truth of suffering and suffering. Suffering can be understood by anyone. What they are. Aging is suffering. Death is suffering. Sickness is suffering. Separation is suffering. Associating with what we don't like is suffering. Sorrow, lamentation, grief, pain, these are suffering. Anyone can understand these sufferings in this world. We don't need a Dhamma or a Buddha in order to understand this suffering in this world. Anyone can understand aging or decay is suffering. Sickness is suffering. Death is suffering. Separation is suffering. Those things can be realized by anyone in this world. We don't need to find a spiritual teacher. That is a common thing in this world. But the noble truth of suffering is different from it. What is that? If there are anything except physical suffering and mental suffering, that is the noble truth of suffering, that is not suffering. What is that? That is our very first experience. When we look at something, when we hear something, when we smell something, when we taste something, when we touch something, the very first experience, especially about the four senses, except our physical body, these experiences are neither pleasant nor unpleasant. These feelings are neither wholesome nor unwholesome. They are neutral. When you look at something, the very first experience is neither pleasant nor unpleasant. That is neither good or bad. That is neither wholesome nor unwholesome. That is neutral. That very first experience, as the result of our previous actions that we receive at this moment, that is neutral. That is neither pleasant nor unpleasant. That is neither wholesome nor unwholesome. That experience is the noble truth of suffering. That is not suffering. That cannot be understood by a normal person. For that we have to listen to spiritual teachings, noble teachings, explained by a noble one. Even though that first experience is neutral, the very important thing that we should understand, we can't stay in this very first experience. The very first experience is very instant. It arises and ceases at the moment quickly. When we recognize something, we always recognize our own mind. After the first experience ceases. Always I take an example, the food that we eat. We can see the food that we are eating now. We can see the food which was in the plate. We saw the food, now we are tasting. But now we can see the food we are eating. We are tasting. But our ignorance doesn't believe it. Our ignorance always invites us, my friend, the food that you are eating now is in the plate. We never think the food which is in our mouth when we tasting something. When we taste something in the mouth, we always look at in the plate. Wow, this food is very delicious, which are in my plate. Look at the food in the plate, I am eating and tasting here. But food is here. We think that food is here, outside. Our entire experiences are also like that. When you look at me, actually the first experience is neutral. When you recognize this is a monk or this is a person, this color is red or yellow, you recognize everything through your mind consciousness. After the first experience has ceased. This is the very important topic in Buddhism about the Four Noble Truths. The other thing is the normal suffering. Physical suffering and mental suffering is the suffering and the noble truth of suffering as well. According to Dhammacakka Sutta, the discourse of Dhammacakka, the Buddha explains Katamancha also dukkhaṃ, because what is suffering? There Buddha explains suffering and the noble truth of suffering as well. Jāti dukkha, birth is suffering. Jarapi dukkha, decay is suffering. Vyādhi dukkha, sickness is suffering. Maranampi dukkhaṃ, death is suffering. Appihi sampayogo dukkha, associating with that we don't like is suffering. Piyehi vipayogo dukkha, separation from our beloved one is suffering. Finally, sankittena panchupadanakkhandha dukkha, in short, arising of five aggregates is suffering. There Buddha explains suffering and the noble truth of suffering as well. If we have some kind of sufferings at the moment, as decay, sickness, death or suffering, that suffering is suffering and the noble truth of suffering as well. Why is that? That is completely suffering in the mundane level. And also that suffering now we are having depends on our first experience. If we didn't receive the first experience, we don't have this suffering. We don't have this suffering. This suffering now we are having as physical or mental depends on the very first experience, which is the noble truth of suffering. Therefore, this suffering that we are having at the moment consists with the first experience, which is the noble truth of suffering. For an example, vehicles, cars, buses, vans, they are vehicles. Every bus is a vehicle. Every van is a vehicle. But all vehicles are not vans. Like that. all the sufferings are suffering, and also they are the noble truth of suffering. All cars are cars, and also they are vehicles as well. But all vehicles are not cars. All sufferings are suffering, and also they are the noble truth of suffering too. All the noble truth of sufferings are not suffering. Why is that? There are some beings in the world, even though they have the noble truth of suffering, they have no suffering. Who they are? They are enlightened ones. They receive the very first experience, the noble truth of suffering. Even after they attain enlightenment, still they are receiving their karmic energy, previous karmic energy, result of their previous karma. They always receive it. When they see something, that is the first experience, the noble truth of suffering they receive. But they are fully enlightened, and they are fully mindful and wise at the moment, with mindfulness and wisdom. As soon as they recognize something, their mind is here. They can see the beauty. They know that beauty they recognize through their mind consciousness. Then they don't depend on the outside material world. They can see the beauty of the life. They can see the beauty of the environment. They can explain the beauty of the environment. They can appreciate the people or things. But they know very well they are dealing with their own mind. When we taste something mindfully and wisely, we can appreciate the food that we are tasting now. But we have no attachment to the food. Now we are tasting. Why? That food is in our mouth, not in the plate. We don't have any attachment to our food which is in the mouth. But we can taste it. We have attachment to the food which is in the plate. If we know that now I am tasting food within the mouth, we never have attachment to the food which is in the mouth. It is so ugly. Can you understand what I am saying? It is clear? Again and again we have to listen in it. This is not easy thing. This is the very deep thing in Buddhism that essentially we should understand. And little by little we go forward, okay? This is the place where we should be confident in what the Buddha taught. If we have this understanding, we understand very well how suffering arises. Suffering always arises because of ignorance. What is the ignorance? Ignorance is that when we experience something, we think that still it is happening in the outside world. That is ignorance. That is the cause of suffering. If you have this ignorance, avidya paccaya sankhara, sankhara paccaya vijnanam, vijnana paccaya nam rupam, then the dependent origination is working. It ends with sorrow, lamentation, death, sickness, aging. If we have this understanding, we are afraid of ignorance. We are hurried to overcome ignorance. With the understanding of the first truth of suffering, we come to the origin of suffering. What is that? The cause of suffering. The cause of suffering is that craving or attachment. Craving arises because of ignorance. We have desire, we have greed, we have craving with ignorance. If we think still it is happening in the outside world, we have attachment. If we don't have this misunderstanding, we have nothing to attach. Suffering arises because of ignorance and attachment. What is the cessation of suffering? Nirodha Satya. The cessation of suffering is that the cessation of ignorance and attachment. That is the cessation of suffering. The noble truth of the cessation of suffering, Nirodha Satya. What is the Magga Satya? The path that leads to getting rid of suffering. The Noble Eightfold Path. In short, mindfulness. The path has been explained in various ways. Sometimes it has been explained as the Noble Eightfold Path. Sometimes Dhamma explained it as the 7 enlightenment factors. Sometimes it is explained as 5 spiritual faculties. Sometimes it is explained as 4-fold mindfulnesses. Sometimes it is explained as 3 disciplines: virtue, concentration, and wisdom. Sometimes it is explained as samatha and vipassana, concentration and wisdom. Sometimes it is explained as only one thing, which is mindfulness. First, vision is first, then mission. This is Buddhist vision. Buddha always says that Samma Ditti Pure Javan. Right understanding, correct view, vision is front. That is first, then mission. Mission without vision is blind. Vision without mission is useless. Mission without vision is blind. Vision without mission is useless. Therefore, vision and mission both are very important. What is the vision? What is the correct view? Right understanding. How suffering arises and how suffering ceases. Whenever we ignorant, still the material world, the external world is happening. That is ignorance. That is the cause of suffering. Whenever we know that the material world has already ceased, I recognize everything through my mind consciousness. That mind consciousness also arises and ceases at the moment. First we release from the material world in the external world and persons. Next we release from our mental formations to finally we completely depend on our understanding, which consists with mindfulness and wisdom. The Buddha says suffering definitely comes to the person who is ignorant. Suffering never comes to the person who is wise and mindful. Whenever we are suffering, be sure we are ignorant and our mind depends on something or someone outside world. We always think something. We always recognize something through some forms. As soon as you remember something, some forms are in your mind. Not only they are in your mind, but you think that still they are in the world somewhere. As you see, as you experience in the last moment, last time. That is the nature of our mind. That is the cause of suffering. If you know that as soon as you remember something, some forms of persons, if you think that now I am reading my own mind, the formal word has already ceased. Your mind has no place to stay. Our minds release from the material world and immediately we come to inside. This present moment also, present mental formations are also impermanent. They arise and cease at the moment. This is the vision. When we have this vision, we know the path. We know the path that leads to getting rid of suffering. What is the path? The Noble Eightfold Path. Right understanding, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness and right concentration. Ujuko nama somaggo abhehanam sadisa. This path is fearless. This is the direct path for liberation. As soon as we understand how suffering arises and falls away, we trust in this message. That is Saddha. Saddha mulika sabbepi kusala Dhamma. Confidence in this message is the foundation of our practice. Confidence leads to practice. The confidence leads to go forward in this practice. The more we are confident in this message, the more our inner motivation develops. The more our inner motivation cultivates, the more we go on the path. Sati, Samadhi, Panya, mindfulness, concentration and wisdom. Saddha, Virya, Sati, Samadhi, Panya. Saddha means confidence in this sublime message. Virya means inner motivation, energy. We are hurried to go forward, overcoming suffering, achieving spiritual results. For that we come to practice Sati, mindfulness, being aware of our body and mind. As the result of practicing mindfulness for a long time, we come to concentration, Samadhi. Mind gains gradually concentration. When mind comes to concentration, we have stillness, ekagata. With the concentrated mind, we reflect on impermanence. Samahito bhikkhave bhikkhu yatabhutam pajanati. He who gains concentration reflects on impermanence as it is. What is impermanence? Impermanence means our I is impermanent, forms are impermanent, I consciousness is impermanent, nose is impermanent, smell is impermanent, nose consciousness is impermanent, ears are impermanent, sounds are impermanent, ear consciousness is impermanent. Impermanence means they arise at the moment with the conditions, they immediately cease when conditions separate. This sound arises at the moment, they immediately cease. This sound didn't come to the present from the past. This sound will not go to future from the present. When we look at something, our I, form, I consciousness, all the conditions arise at the moment. We look at again and again. That is why we see the same thing. When a vehicle goes very fast, we think that the vehicle is going very fast. Actually, our eyes are unable to see the moving vehicles. We see a picture here, here, then we combine everything together through our mind consciousness. I can see the moving pictures or vehicles. Moving vehicles or pictures are here that we create in our mental formations. But our mind is very fast. Because our mind is very fast, we can't recognize it. We think that I can see the moving cars, but I can't see it. I can get only the present color, form. It is not a recognized form, just color. With this understanding, we come to our practice. This is the vision. Vision means knowing the address where we are going to, the destination. Vision is first, then mission. If we practice without vision, it means we are driving to somewhere without knowing the address. Do you go to the destination without knowing the address, even though you drive fast? No. Even though you have courage, even though you have a great dedication, if you don't know the place where you are going to, even though you drive fast, you are unable to reach the destination since you don't know the place you are going to. Therefore, this understanding is first. Buddha says, Samma Ditti Pure Javam. Right understanding is first, then our mission. Buddha says, Janato aham bhikkhave passato asavanam kayam vadami no ajanato no apassato. I proclaim the liberation from suffering for those who know the path, who see the path. I proclaim the liberation for those who know the path, who see the path. Without knowing the path, without knowing the vision, we are unable to reach the destination, our spiritual goal. Vidya uppatatan settha. Developing this vision is very important. It is bliss. It is great. Avidya nipatatan vara. Ignorance falling down is good, great. When we develop wisdom or vision, then gradually our ignorance or delusion falls down. Buddha says, increasing the wisdom is great, reducing or falling down of ignorance is great. Sangho pavajamananang, Sangha, Buddha's disciples, wherever they go, that place is good. Among the people who are walking in this earth, monks are great. Why? Buddha says, among the people who are walking on this earth, Sangha or monastics are great. Why is that? While they are walking on this planet, begging some food, they explain this message to the world, the path how to overcome suffering. Having some food, begging some food, walking from village to village on this planet, they preach this Dhamma to the world kindly, with compassionate heart. Therefore, Buddha says, among the people who walk on this planet, monks, nuns, or other noble disciples are great. Buddho pavadatang varo. Among the people, those who are talking, the Buddha is best. Since we receive this message from Buddha's words, Here we explain the vision, Samadhi in short. The more we know the suffering, the more we know the origin of suffering and the cessation of suffering and the path that leads to getting rid of suffering too. The more we know the origin of suffering, the more we know the suffering, the cessation of suffering and the path that leads to getting rid of suffering too. The more we know the cessation of suffering, the more we know suffering and the origin of suffering and the path that leads to getting rid of suffering too. The more we understand the path that leads to getting rid of suffering, the more we know the suffering and the arising of suffering and the cessation of suffering. These four things, the Four Noble Truths, are interrelated. In order to understand this truth, again and again, we have to associate good friends who know the Dhamma. And also again and again, we have to listen to this message. And again, we should reflect on this reality again and again. And also, we should practice this Dhamma again and again. What is the practice? The Noble Eightfold Path, or three trainings, Sila Samadhi Panya, or Samatha Vipassana, concentration and insight meditation, or in short, which is mindfulness. Okay, friends in Dhamma, we will discuss about your questions too in the next sessions. We meet again and again, then we can discuss our questions too, okay? Now I wanted to go to the end of this sermon, that is why I continuously did it, okay? You are so lucky. We are receiving the sublime message. While we are listening to Dhamma, that is also a place where we practice. Listening is not away from practice. Listening also a place where we practice Dhamma. In the Buddha's time, many disciples attain enlightenment while they are listening to Dhamma, opening their eyes. But they were fully mindful and wise. If you are mindful and wise with good intention, no matter whether you are opening or close your eyes, no matter whether you are walking, standing, sitting or lying down, the essential things are mindfulness and wisdom. Being mindful in the present moment of our body and mind and reflecting on impermanence. That is the thing that we should have. If we have these qualifications, no matter whether you are opening your eyes or not, no matter whether in which posture that you are in. Therefore, in four postures, standing, walking, sitting and lying down, in these four postures, we can practice Dhamma. And also when we are thinking, when we are speaking, when we are doing something, in any action, we can practice Dhamma. From morning to going to bed, everywhere, every moment, every posture, we can practice Dhamma. Whenever we practice Dhamma, we live in the present moment with mindfulness. Whenever we are living with mindfulness and wisdom, we are liberated from suffering. Whenever we are liberated from suffering, we are living in the present moment and also we are happy. Happiness is in the present moment. They usually wish that, may I have a better tomorrow. That better tomorrow never comes until you die. That tomorrow never comes until you die. The present moment is the best moment. Actually, we have only this present moment, since our past has ceased, the future hasn't come yet. If we can succeed the present moment, living in the present moment, reflecting on impermanence, our entire life is successful. If we are unable to succeed the present moment, we can believe our future will be successful. We should try to succeed the present moment. How do we succeed the present moment? Living with mindfulness and wisdom, reflecting on impermanence. Okay, dear friends in the Dhamma, for that I wish you all the best. Now we are going to end this sermon about the vision, about the right understanding, which consists with 4 noble truths. Whenever we understand the 4 noble truths, we understand the dependent origination, causality, patisampada. Whenever we understand the causality, we understand the 5 aggregates: Rupa, form; Vedana, feelings; Sanya, perception; Sankhara, mental formations; and Vijnana, consciousness. These 3 things in Buddhism are interrelated. 4 noble truths, dependent origination, and 5 aggregates. The nature of our life. Our life completely consists with these 5 things: Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankhara, Vijnana. When we see something, when we hear something, it means these 5 things. When we analyze all the experiences, finally we can see these 5 things. But these 5 things are invisible. Our life is like iceberg. You know iceberg? On the ocean? In the iceberg, we can see, few things upon the water. But below the water, we can see many things. When we see something, we see a picture. This is like the upper level of the iceberg. What is the bottom level of the iceberg? Like that, 5 aggregates are the bottom level. 5 aggregates are invisible. Through listening to Dhamma, we understand the 5 aggregates which are below the water. We always see the pictures like upper thin of the iceberg. If we want to understand the bottom level things, we have to understand Dhamma again and again. When we recognize the bottom thin, which are 5 aggregates, we understand the entire life. Then we have nothing to attach or get angry. We come to neutral, equanimity, upekha. We are calm and quiet. We don't need to change anything in the external world, outside world. We need to do only thing which is changing our perception into the correct way. When we change our perception, automatically the world has changed. Okay, friends in the Dhamma, first we practice the 4 sublime states. Now we listening to the highest knowledge of our life, the world as it is, right understanding, vision in Buddhism, vision in the reality in this world, what Buddhism has explained. Okay, now your mind is so pure and calm. Now you have a very beautiful mind now. Please maintain it. Please protect it. Don't give any chance to anyone to disturb your beautiful mind. Please keep your beautiful mind. Please maintain your beautiful mind. Don't give any chance to anyone disturb your peace of mind, the beauty of your mind. Okay, for that, I wish you all the best. For that, we have to practice mindfulness again and again. Please be aware of your body and mind every moment. On the other side, please always practice loving kindness meditation. May all beings be well, happy and peaceful. When someone prepare food for you, be grateful. Thank you so much. Practice loving kindness. May all beings who prepare food for me be well, happy and peaceful. May all beings who prepare the facilities for me be well, happy and peaceful. Then you have paid your gratitude for them. Then you are free. That is how Buddha says, if a person can practice 1 second as metta bhavana, loving kindness meditation, you are suitable to get the facilities from the world. That is very important thing. Okay, for that I wish you all the best by the power of this listening to Dhamma and practicing Dhamma. May all your spiritual goals meet with success. May you be well, happy and peaceful. May all of us attain the supreme bliss of liberation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Dukkham pantaca nindukkha, bhayam pantaca ninbhayam, sokam pantaca nissokam, untu sambe pipanino.